Hello, hello, hello. The Papa and I, we are making a video today. Yes, I already made a 10-minute video and it started to get into a slow motion and eventually at 10:08 it totally frozen. Okay, then I was like, the video is frozen in. And then I couldn't even move the arrow anymore. Okay, so the entire system was frozen in. I was thinking, cookies? Is it because of the cookies? If I could get a whole vegan, delicious cookie for every computer cookie, I would become very fat. I would become twice as fat. So, but anyway, yeah. I had to do a power wash, yes, and the video is deleted too. But now the video is not out of sync, so now it's finally working. I'm glad. And I noticed also they got better light adjustment now. So this is automatic and much better light adjustment. I can clearly see this now. My face is like extremely pale and it's a little bit wishy-washy because of the light adjustment because the sun is going down. So but at least the light is bright, it's not getting completely dim yet, so that's pretty nice. So I really like Google. I'm a Google fan, I'm a Google fan for life. Okay, Google for life, Google über alles. So I will never buy Microsoft again. And also because I think it is horrific that Bill Gates has frozen the entire Google corporation in and shackled their hands and feet in terms of creating really super stellar video editing software, built in video reviewing, and so on, and has really limited their options that they can offer to the world, because Bill Gates will claim on all kinds of random stuff that is just common sense, random, I mean, not common, rational sense video use and streaming and editing. He has put a monopoly on it, and he said that he claims to have that as a patent, and he claims to have that he patents everything. And I think that's outrageous. How far is that guy gonna go in terms of claiming his monopoly and his patents and not allowing other companies to use such rational sense things, And the same is also happening. Every Google is an ethical corporation, and so every ethical corporation seems like that wants to make things better for customers, for the world. They run into these monopolizers like Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg. I don't know how far Mark Zuckerberg does it. So, but I heard from other people that he does it. And Jeff Bezos, So how far, how far do these people take it? I mean, you put greed over well-being. You put greed over making things better for other people. You want to secure your clientele, so that they, or Apple that's another corporation that is patent based and wants to hawk to themselves the customers and their monopoly, and say that only they have the right to have this type of format, or video editing features and whatever, or whatever types of programs. that they have already in their system, that where that system comes with these types of abilities, and then the other corporations there, like the kind-hearted ones, the newer ones like Google, they are not allowed to use anything that resembles that. And they immediately, and the lawyers of Bill Gates will immediately jump on this and say, you took our patent and you're not allowed to. And there's endless lawsuits. It's like a battlefield. I mean, this is insane. This is really insane. It makes me very angry. Makes me very, very angry. And so that brings me to the subject that I wanted to talk about, and that is the video title that I wanted to give this video: compassionate listening, you know, or also in parenthesis, helping someone, being there for someone, and being patient and all of this, versus recklessly holding the other cheek. So, and there's such thing as recklessly holding the other cheek, which is something that the Democratic Party has been doing, but they did it in order to, because it's become a corporation almost. It's like a company. It's like pro profit. so So then this holding the other cheek became like, as it's like a standard type of functioning to get votes. So because the majority of people, they go like, yeah, you hold the other cheek, you must be good, I vote for you. Yeah, you let all jihadists in, I vote for you. You are good. You let all prisoners out, I vote for you. Great. Not great. Okay. Not great at all. Okay. So, and that's where my limits are with so-called liberalism. And I'm making video, but it's not showing you. So it's not showing you. It's showing only me. So, and that is all extremely annoying. And it goes into all kinds of fields in life, not just in terms of therapy. I was talking to people under the Tony Robbins videos about this, like how far do you go in compassionate listening, and how far do you go with, at what point does it become holding the other cheek? At what point do you have to actually set a limit? Or at what point do you actually, as a therapist, do you have to set a boundary towards the client? And that same theme also applies to prisoners. It applies to radical religious murderers. It applies to psychopaths. It applies to kids. It applies to rambunctious teenagers. It certainly applies to all corrupt people. It applies to the drug mafia, and so on and on and on and on. We can't be endlessly, recklessly holding the other cheek, and saying, oh, people can change. I'm sorry, but I really don't agree with this. I really love Governor Gavin Newsom, but I do not at all agree with him on letting prisoners out and holding the other cheek recklessly ad infinitum, ad nauseum. No, that's not going to work. That's going to make everyone nauseated in the end. It really will. It's not going to work. It's just not workable. It is not functional. It's dysfunctional to handle things that way. So we have to do things in a rational way, in a way that works. We can't be endlessly expanding out and endlessly, and just taking down all boundaries, literally and metaphorically. We can't just endlessly doing this. Every single living being has boundaries, and you have to stack up your boundaries up to here at arm's length and no further, right? So I mean, up to there, up to specific point, you can maybe make a joke if you feel like doing some crude joking, but there is definitely a boundary line. You cannot cross that boundary, you know. You cannot cross the boundary and hurt someone's feelings or hurt someone physically or another any living being, okay? So there are boundaries, but most of humanity hasn't understood that at all. Most people, that's why I have a very wealthy friend, and she said to us after a very long discussion on ethics, and she used to listen to Jiddu Krishnamurti's talks in Ojai. She was lucky to see him speak. And that's also why Donna has come this far in her life and has that much generosity and and friendliness and openness to people and to kind-hearted people, and is not restricted as so many other people, particularly in our community. So but then she said to Paul that without religion people wouldn't even know at all what's right or wrong. Now I don't know how far she herself has internalized some some statement such as that. This definitely doesn't apply to me or my husband, right? I mean, we do not need religion to be responsible people. And besides that, every religion is different. There may be some religions that promote responsibility or kindness, but then there are also religions that are worse, and there are religions that are really bad, that have no ethics at all. You want to go by that, so you can't go by religion. It's absolutely out of the question. Okay, you have to question all everything that people ever proclaimed to the world. You have to question religious text and books. Who wrote that? Who wrote archaic books and texts? People who had no idea what they're talking about, obviously. Right? We have a lot smarter humans today. Trust me on that, than we had 300 years ago. Maybe Leonardo da Vinci was an exception. Friedrich Nietzsche was pretty smart. Gautama Buddha is end, endless wisdom, absolute endless wisdom. So you can count them on one hand. But today we have a number of intelligent people. The knowledge has risen, the overall understanding about life and how about ourselves, about biology. So why do you look into an archaic book for answers? Okay, but when we have science, and science never made the statement to say that they have the end all of all knowledge, because there's no such thing as all knowledge. Okay, there will never be all knowledge, because knowledge is just what I have figured out so far until here. Okay, knowledge is always limited. That doesn't make it invalid. Okay, quite the opposite. That makes it very honest, and that makes it an explorational field. Okay, this is a constant exploring. Okay, we are on a constant exploration quest. Okay, that's what science is about. I am constantly exploring, like an earthworm that is constantly exploring forward, checking everything out. And that's what science is. We explore into the microcosmos, we explore into the macrocosmos, we probe into the infinite cosmos, and we will never reach an end because the infinite cosmos doesn't have an end. No cosmos has an end. And I would also say no dimension has an end or beginning. Okay, so in the overall existence there is no beginning and there is no end. This is very frightening for a lot of people, but just accept it as that. Okay, you don't need to control everything. That's just the ego that wants to control everything. The ego wants to have eternal life. So just accept that you are a temporary existence and that you want to make the best out of that as good as you can. We want to make the best out of this temporary existence. And that's what I am hoping to promote in my videos. So I was talking to people under the Tony Robbins videos last night. They were asking these questions. Tony Robbins is a little bit, he likes to condense the time that he spends on therapy. He wants to get people quicker to their desired goals, and that's all good, and that's his method, and I get it to the point. To some point, I understand, and he's helped me a lot. He's an amazing person. However, I personally would not approach therapy like this, and there were some other people that also on their own accord made these observations and commented on it and said that they do not agree on crossing certain boundaries. Everyone has different ideas on where ethics boundaries are. So to some people they're just a little bit more cocky, a little bit more sassy in the way they move forward, and some people are a little bit more leaned back and a little bit listening longer and giving the client more time. So really, and either one can be for ambitious and monetary reasons. I want therapy centers in the whole world that are free of charge and free from religion. It's very important to have that, to be based on nonprofit, and to be also governmentally supported if possible, because that would be a good investment of the taxpayers' money. Okay, I'll be happy to give my property tax to an organization that helps every single person, every single homeless person on the street. The people, they're all on drugs, they're all on substances. That's why they are lingering, that's why they are loitering. Okay, that's why they are dirty, that's why they can't wash themselves anymore, because I've talked about this before. They did tests with rats, which is unethical, of course, and they found out that when the rats press a specific lever that triggers the pleasure center in the brain, that they get addicted to this. They keep on just pressing that lever. If they don't even drink anymore, they don't even eat anymore, they don't wash themselves anymore, they don't groom themselves anymore, they don't mate anymore. So we see the same things with the homeless people. They're all on substances. And why are they on substances? Because their lives have dwindled to that point. Okay, they didn't start out like this. They didn't start their lives like this. Okay, obviously they have not been loved. Okay, that's a very critical thing. So that's also what I wanted to talk about the other day. Also, in retrospect on my last video that I made in regards to the subject suicide. Why does someone not want to exist anymore? Obviously, because their needs are not met. Okay, if my needs are completely, totally saturated and met, right? If all of my needs are met, if I get massage every day, if I get unconditional love every day, supporting husband or boyfriend or group that's constantly in support, and they are also show me boundaries. They'll also say up to here, not further. They give me constructive criticism. They'll say, hey, you know, up to here with your little quirks, okay, but not further than that, because we have to coexist. We have to have a constructive and loving relationship with one another. If I had all of these things in my life, right, or had in the past, I would have never had these suicide attempts. If I had a mother that would have given me unconditional love and endless hugs and kisses like I give to my papa dog, well, then I would never have that. I would never be in this. There would never be this discrepancy. This. Are you okay? Did you fall? I never know what he's doing. So he's already fallen several times. Uh, so he can't even hear me saying this, even if I talk loud and he's just right around the corner. He can't hear me anymore. He's almost completely deaf. So it's all of this is really, really frightening. And yeah, and then, yeah, this is not, he's doesn't have his emotions also really under checks and balances. So, and it's hard, it's very hard. The hearing part is very hard also for the other person, some kind of like weirdnesses are hard on the other person, and difficulties understanding certain things also cognitively can be very hard on that other person. But what's the hardest is when one partner is just crossing the other person's boundaries all the time, particularly emotionally, but also physically. It's very difficult. So, or gets mean, or gets, emotionally doesn't have his emotions under control, and just puts way too many demands on the other person and gets mad if those demands are not met. Okay, now that's very hard on someone, and that can make someone either say, okay, now at some point I have to draw the line. This is, I have to set an ultimatum, or I have to, which I did. I set an ultimatum that night after I made the last video. I had to, I said, okay, if you continue like this, we are heading to that lady that signed our marriage contract. So, and we are going to terminate that contract, and I'm going to move somewhere else with the papa dog. So, and I said, this is what I'm going to have to do. So I've been at this ultimatum already, I would say 5 times before. There's always about a year or two in between, or maybe 3 years sometimes. So, but it always inevitably, seems to be moving back to that. It's like a magnet. It draws itself into this ultimatum conversation again and again and again. And if it didn't, if I held the other cheek ad infinitum, then I would become physically sick. And that is what happened to my friend Birgit. She had a husband who constantly crossed her boundaries. He did not give her the love she needed. And she clung to him because she thought without him she wouldn't make it. She felt she couldn't work anymore because she already was sick. That was caused also by unloving relationships before that. And But when she met him, she was, at the time she met him, she was on her way up, getting better, healing herself. So then she got into the relationship with that guy, with her last husband. And he made her sick again. And she let him do it. She held the other cheek. So that's why I say, if we hold the other cheek indefinitely, we will see there will be inevitable consequences for this. It's the energy, it's an energy thing, it's energetic. It can either go into psychology, into severe depression. Now, this is what's happened to me in my entire life with negative people around me. Or it can go into a physical illness, which happened to my friend Birgit and which happened to my friend Barbara as well. So, and when these things, because of also unresolved psychological problems, and that were so unresolved that they weren't even visible cognitively to them, they didn't even know that they were there, these problems. That's the case with a lot of people. Or men that don't want to commit. It's a completely unconscious problem. They don't even know why they are acting the way they do. And then when they finally face the consequences because of their non-commitment and their wife has moved on to someone else, then the emotions have never been resolved. They never had gained any insights about their own psychology. Then the whole thing is unconscious, and they just blame the other person for moving on and not seeing why that person moved on. Maybe because that other person didn't give the love, didn't give the commitment, right? So I saw a speech of a woman. She was with the guy, I don't know, like for 20 years and never given, or I don't know how long it was, 15 years or 11 years. I think it was 11 years. And so she finally, at some point, it really became clear to her, okay, this guy is never going to give me a commitment to this relationship. Okay, time to end it. Even though it was scary and it would bring up tremendous pain and grief. But that other guy that she left, he got physically sick because he never worked on these things psychologically, never knew what was actually going on. So that's why I say to people, to become aware about our psychology, it should be a mandatory teaching class subject in schools. Okay, and we need to have internet schools, very important. We can't go on with actual schools where people are physically bullied and killed even. So we cannot go on with this constantly, someone going into schools shooting or killing or injuring people physically and psychologically. Psychological damage done nonstop in schools. Okay, so that has to end. We have to have internet schools now. So we're getting into the technology, the full technology phase now. We're merging into the full technology phase now, and that is our rescue. Okay, we have to have it. That's coming in as a Deus ex machina. Let's embrace it, and let's use it to make the world better, to help us. So, in a therapeutic relationship of therapist and client, the therapist cannot be above the client. Okay, we have to be on eye level, but we cannot. But the therapist has to also make sure that he or she stacks up the boundaries up to here and not further. Okay, he's the client. He is the therapist. Okay, the client can't just completely transgress the boundaries. The client can only go up to here with his crude jokes or whatever, or sexual comments or whatever, up to here, okay, not further. So there, but this thing has to be the case with all living beings. All living beings, including the client, has to stack up his or her boundaries up to here. You can't have the therapist cross the boundaries, which happened to me also in my life. So, or I may have also crossed boundaries in people because I didn't even notice. I didn't see the boundaries. They never told me the boundaries, and I was ignorant in the past, right? So that's why we need to learn about psychology. We need to just even first of all get on the track of learning about psychology. We're not even on the track yet. So that's very, very important that that we expand this knowledge about ourselves and about others, about the needs of other living beings, dogs, horses, humans, all beings. Okay, very important that we learn what that other living being needs. Okay, and all of us mammals and many other types of animals, we have feelings. We need to, even plants, they react to classical music in a positive way. So there is a form of sentience. Okay, there's a form of input, of there is a form of feeling, but it's on a big scale, so in this way, I believe that everything has some form of consciousness, and some form of conscious awareness, but it can be more vegetative versus very highly alert, up to a whale, humpback whale, for example, with extreme alertness, more than humans. Okay, so more than land animals, extreme brain, bigger brain, more complicated, more complex brain. Also bigger brain in form of body brain ratio. Okay, so huge brains out there in the ocean. Most people don't even know that. They don't even consider it. So we need to learn about all of this. A lot of our perspective is going to change. Okay? There is corporatism that cannot hold up anymore with this type of knowledge. That's why the corporations want to bury their heads into the sand when it comes to sentience. They don't want to hear about it, they don't want to see it. They don't allow anyone to look over their shoulders. They don't want someone to come in and film what they're doing undercover. They don't want the public to know. So because they're only interested about profit maximization. Okay, but we need to know what the other person is doing, because ethics is every single person's business. Okay, every single person. You can't say, oh, this is my business, or it's the kids' business if they want to ingest large amounts of nicotine, for example. This debate is going on right now in the White House because the tobacco lobbyists are in there, with both feet and hands, trying to force their way through, But Donald Trump is not that easily impressed. He wants to hear other people's views, and he also is very good at detecting where anyone is coming from with their request, and with their lobbying and with their corporate interest and so on, or whether someone is coming from actual compassion and activism and wants to help, wants to make things better. In that sense, Mitt Romney and his wife and the Mormons are against smoking, okay, and that I share with them 100%. So I am totally on board with that. I'm on board with outlawing all tobacco related products and nicotine. So because it is a drug, it's highly addictive. It's as at least as addictive as alcohol and hard drugs like cocaine and heroin or other hard drugs. It's just as addictive. I know because I've been through this myself. I know how hard it is to quit. You have to be extremely clear in your mind that it's not an option anymore. It really has to be sitting firm. This understanding, this is not an option anymore. It doesn't go into this avenue anymore. Okay, it's a red flag. It's not an option. Those substances, any toxic substance, is not an option. Alcohol is not an option. Your life is not going to continue. It cannot continue down that path. Okay. If you do it anyway, you will become a homeless person, just like all of these loiterers that are constantly standing there and they're watching everything that's going on the parking lot. They watch. If they see someone that doesn't know shit or that doesn't know what's going on, or they see someone that may also be drunk like they are, or that may be disoriented in some way, they immediately go over there and seize that opportunity to bum money, or worse, rob them, or no telling what they might do. So one has to be very alert in these situations. For example, you can't leave your dog or child in the car and go shopping, uh, or you don't know what the loiterer that's out there might do. So no, you can't. You have to have some kind of helper or partner that waits with the dog or the child in the car. It's as simple as that. That's responsible living, for example. And you come back and you take turns and you sit with the animal or the child, okay? And while the other one goes shopping. That's how we do it. Okay, we would never leave the papa dog alone. And when Papa has to go make pee pee and I see a homeless person, it always gets all of my alarm lamps on. So I have to make sure that everything is secured. That's also why we have really large, like massively impressive walkie-talkies. Because just the other day, Paul was putting his groceries into the van. I was sitting in the passenger seat, and I see the loiterer come up real slowly, like acting like he's not interested in Paul. No, but then he would look like, but then he would get a little bit close. I see all of this. So I grab my impressive walkie talkie, I go out there, and I have it in my hand. And I look at the loiterer like this. And then the loiterer goes, okay, I better get out of here. And he did. Okay. So that's all it took. So there may be some other people, there may be some more dangerous people out there, that will not be so easily impressed by a large walkie talkie. So that's why, but we have to stack up our boundaries. And people in big cities, I feel sorry for them. I really do. Because that's where the real dangerous people are. So, but you have to protect your animals, your children, and yourself, okay? We cannot hold the other cheek. We cannot be voting for people that let prisoners out. We cannot be giving in to a client who says he needs to smoke because he's addicted to it. It's like, yeah, I know you're addicted to it. Oh, that's why that's not therapy. I'm sorry. That's not helping that other person. If you want to help that other person, you have to say the smoking is not an option. You have to quit it right now. It's not an option. Okay. Dr. Schultz, he said when people came to his holistic healing clinic in LA, he said, "What? You're smoking? You gotta quit. Come back in a year, and after you've been completely free from that stuff for a whole year, then you can come back. Then we can work on the other stuff." Okay, this is really the foundation. Yeah. He said, I can't quit for you. You have to do that yourself. You have, first of all, really make that decision, and that decision is a bottom up process. It comes from yourself, and that applies to all substances. And you have to be critical in that way to yourself. Okay. And you cannot let yourself get by, get, just get away with any of these addictions. You have to be really, really critical, and you have to quit all these substances, and you have to be very stern with your children and your clients in that way. And if the it we can't control a human, we can control a retarded person or an animal, because they're like little children, they're in our custody. So, but we cannot control an adult that has a mind on his own and just will maybe say, okay, I will quit, and then in the evening sneaks out and goes to a bar or something. If you have a son or a client or whatever like this, there comes a point where you cannot hold the other cheek, where you have to set an ultimatum. You tell this person, okay, so I see you haven't made the decision to quit, but I will make now the decision here in this situation where where it comes to protecting my boundaries. Even if you are a mother, I know how difficult this must be, but you have to do it, or that son of yours will tear you down into the ground with him. So it's your choice. So there comes a point where you make that decision, where you make this boundary, set this boundary, and make the decision for that other person and say, okay, so if you want to continue on that path, just know what you're getting into. Maybe that's your soul journey. Maybe that's what you set out to do, but don't tear other people into it. Okay. I want nothing to do with this. So then go on, do it. Not in my house anymore, not on my property anymore. You go, move on, move somewhere else. If you want to be on the street, that's your business. Okay. I try to help you. I went to the boundary between us to help you. I can't cross the boundary. You're an adult, you know. So I can't, you're not a disabled living being. You're not cognitively in this way dependent. You may be, but you really aren't, because you can sneak out of the house. You have enough intelligence in a self destructive way. Okay, not like a disabled child that would never do drugs because it would never even understand any of these things, or an animal. So the papa dog wouldn't take drugs either. That wouldn't cross his mind, right? So, we have custody over those that need our help, that are dependent on us. But the other ones, like, a witty, fast thinking, self destructive teenager, if she or he hasn't understood this thing about saving herself or himself, then at some point you have to let that person go, or you have to, if they're under 18, you have to call child protective services, and you have to get help from them. You have to tell them, look, I can't continue. My kid is, that could be a 17-year-old boy that weighs 250 pounds and can even hurt the mother that's just 150 pounds, right? So, or rob her, or I don't know what he might do to get to drugs or something. There are kids that have murdered their parents to get to drugs. I mean, you have to set the boundaries, right? And if they're under 18, you have to call for help, right? You cannot, you have to give that child up into a facility that is governmentally run for difficult kids, right? At some point, you have to do it. If that kid is ruining your health, okay, you have to protect yourself. Or, if you're selfless, then, or maybe you want to be ruined, then together with it, wherever he goes, I go. You might have that attitude too. So But then don't tear another living being into that decision. If you want to hold the other cheek with the destructive kid and you want to go down with him together, okay, that's another decision that you can make. I don't recommend it, but then don't tear your animal into the situation. You understand what I mean? Bring your animal then before you do go onto the street and become homeless with your kid together. Bring your animal to the animal shelter so that the animal then at least has the chance to be adopted by someone who can be there for that animal. Or another child, a helpless child that's not taking drugs. Bring that child to someone who is able to be there for that child. Don't tear the other beings with you just because of that one teenager that you hold the other cheek ad infinito. I hope that makes a lot of sense. So we cannot be recklessly holding the other cheek, okay? And we cannot give in to any of these reckless behaviors also of politicians. Everyone is part of this whole thing. Okay, we're all part of this and we need to all be responsible citizens of planet Earth. Very important. But when it comes to a therapy process, like, a psychotherapy process, of course I'm there and I listen. And I love everyone unconditionally and infinitely, right? Every living being. And I want everyone to be happy. It's not that I'm like, just because I don't hold the other cheek ad infinitum doesn't mean I don't love them. Still love them, but I don't let another living being hurt me. I hope that makes a lot of sense. But I'm not going to be mean to someone. I don't mock anyone. I don't use sarcasm. I don't play hardball with anyone, child, client, whatever being. Okay. You be there, you're supportive. You don't throw a glass of water in their face. Tony Robbins did that. So I would never do something like this just to get them out of some kind of stuck loop or something. No, I let people talk and we come together. We find the nitty gritty of the psychology, gradually. It's also a learning process. Therapy is also learning. Okay, it's at the same time. Okay, you guys take care. Bye bye.